You know, for most of our history, we've pictured human evolution as this really simple, straight line. But what if the real story is, well, a lot messier? More like a huge, sprawling family saga, just full of lost relatives and forgotten branches. Today, we're going to play detective and use some amazing new evidence to solve the greatest mysteries about our own origins.
Yeah, until pretty recently, the idea was that for the last 30,000 years, Homo sapiens, that's us, we've been the only human species on the planet. But some truly astonishing discoveries are forcing us to completely rewrite that story. Our investigation is going to start on a remote island in Indonesia.
So, our first case takes us to this remote cave. A team of archaeologists were there looking for clues about the first Australians, and they stumbled upon something that nobody could have ever predicted.
In 2004, they unearthed this. It's the 18,000-year-old partial skeleton of a tiny, fully grown adult female. It was so small, so strange, it just threw the entire scientific world into a frenzy. They immediately nicknamed her the Hobbit.
And when I say tiny, I really mean it. This adult individual stood just over 1 meter tall. That's about 3'3". This wasn't a child, this was a mature member of a population of very, very small humans.
What made this creature so completely baffling was its just bizarre mix of features. The brain was tiny, but it had a large frontal lobe. That's the part we associate with planning. The wrists, more like an African ape's than ours. The shoulders looked like an ancestor from 1.5 million years ago, and they had no chin. This wasn't just a small human. This was something else entirely. And the evidence shows they lived on this island for nearly 90,000 years.
So you can imagine this sparked a huge debate. On one side, scientists argued this was a brand new species, Homo floresiensis, a lost branch of our family that survived in isolation. On the other side, some thought, no, this is just a modern Homo sapiens who had a growth disorder like microcephaly. So how could science possibly solve this puzzle?
Well, to crack a case this old, you need a really specialized toolkit. And for paleoanthropologists, one of the most powerful tools comes from looking at the smallest, hardest parts of the body.
It's a whole field called dental anthropology. It's the science of using teeth to understand everything about an individual and exactly where they fit in the evolutionary tree.
So why teeth? Well, because they are basically biological time capsules. Enamel is the hardest substance in the human body, which means teeth can survive for millions of years, long after bone has turned to dust. They lock in a perfect record of development in childhood, and they don't change much throughout life. The sheer amount of data locked inside a single tooth is just incredible. I mean, from teeth alone, scientists can figure out the species, estimate the age at death, reconstruct their diet and lifestyle, they can see evidence of childhood illnesses, and even trace relationships between ancient populations.
Okay, so let's apply this amazing science back to our mystery on Flores Island. What secrets were hidden inside the Hobbit's jaw?
This was the smoking gun. On the left, you see the jaw of Homo floresiensis. See that thick ridge of bone on the inside of the jaw? That's called internal buttressing. Now look at the modern human jaw on the right. Our bracing is on the outside. That's what forms our chin. And here is the absolute clincher. This internal buttressing is an ancient feature that is never found in modern humans. Not sick ones, not healthy ones. Case closed. This was not a diseased Homo sapiens.
Discovering one lost relative was just the beginning. These same scientific principles are now helping us solve another fundamental mystery. When and how did the first people actually arrive in the Americas? It turns out the same kinds of evidence are completely rewriting that story too. For a very long time, the story seems simple. At the end of the last ice age, sea levels were way lower, and a land bridge called Beringia connected Asia to Alaska. People just walked across, and from there they moved south into the continents. This was known as the Clovis first theory. The idea was that the first Americans were the Clovis people, who we can identify by their very distinctive spear points, and that they arrived around 11,000 years ago. For decades, this was scientific dogma. But then, new evidence started pouring in, and it completely shattered that timeline. A settlement down at Monteverde in Chile was confirmed to be nearly 13,000 years old. Human DNA from ancient poop, yes, poop, in Oregon's Paisley Caves pushed the date back even further. Then tools in Florida. All of this evidence proved that people were in both North and South America at least 1,500 years before Clovis ever showed up. So,
What do these two stories, a lost species in Indonesia and a totally revised timeline in the Americas, what do they tell us about our own past? Well, they reveal a picture that is far more complex and, frankly, way more fascinating than we ever knew.
We really need to just throw out that old, simplistic image of the linear march of progress. You know the one. The new reality, supported by all this evidence, is that our family tree is a dense, bushy, and tangled affair, with many different kinds of humans coexisting, competing, and very often disappearing.
So let's look at where the Hobbit fits into all this. This phylogenetic tree shows that Homo floresiensis isn't a close cousin at all. It sits on a very, very early branch of the Homo genus, splitting off long before our own species even existed. It is a true survivor from a much, much earlier chapter of the human story.
And think about what this means. We shared the planet with another human species not 30,000 years ago, but as recently as 10,000 years ago. A remnant population from an ancient migration that survived in isolation for over 1 million years. It just completely changes our perspective on what it even means to be human.
So the ultimate takeaway here is this. Our history is not a simple story of inevitable progress. It's a saga. A messy, complicated, and incredible story with characters we're only just beginning to meet. Lost relatives who challenge our entire place in the world.
And that leaves us with one final, absolutely tantalizing question. If the hobbits of Flores could remain hidden until 2004, who else is out there, waiting in some forgotten cave or buried under ancient sediment, ready to rewrite our story all over again?